A tiny gypsy vanner foal lay motionless in the corner of a rain-soaked barn, its black and white coat dulled by dust and neglect. The distinctive feathering around its legs, a hallmark of this majestic breed, was matted and tangled, a far cry from the flowing silken strands that should have caught the light like strands of silver. The sound of raindrops hitting the weathered roof echoed the empty space, a lonely rhythm that matched the foal's shallow breathing, creating a melancholic symphony of solitude. Its legs, still weak and unsteady, were tucked beneath its thin frame, while its usually bright eyes remained half-closed, devoid of the spark that should light up any young horse's gaze. No mother in sight, no gentle nickering to comfort it through the storm, no warm body to snuggle against in these crucial early days of life. But as fate would have it, an unexpected visitor was about to pad through the barn door, a scruffy stray dog whose presence would change everything. Stay with us for a powerful story of unlikely friendship, healing, and the remarkable bonds that can form between the most unexpected souls in the darkest of times. Before we begin, tell us, have you ever witnessed an animal sensing another creature's need for help? Share your experiences below. The bitter chill of early spring settled over the countryside, painting the abandoned farm in shades of gray and muted green. Morning mist clung to the rolling hills like a ghostly blanket, wrapping everything in its ethereal embrace. The old barn, its red paint peeling and wooden boards weathered by countless seasons, stood as a silent sentinel in the misty morning light, its timbers creaking softly in the wind like whispered secrets of days long past. Inside, the foal's situation grew more dire with each passing hour. Its distinctive gypsy vanner markings, normally a source of pride in these prized horses, were barely visible through the layer of dirt and debris that clung to its coat. The black patches that should have gleamed like polished obsidian were dull and lifeless, while the white areas that should have sparkled like fresh snow were stained with mud and tears. The little one couldn't have been more than a few weeks old, its feathered legs not yet showing the full plumage that would one day make it magnificent, but already hinting at the beauty that lay beneath the current despair. The mother's absence was a cruel twist of fate, a tragic accident that had left the foal orphaned just days before. The local farmers had heard the commotion that night, the desperate whinnies echoing across the fields like a mournful song. The sound had carried through the valley, bouncing off the hills and stirring the sleeping countryside from its peaceful slumber. But by the time anyone reached the scene, it was too late. The mare was gone, leaving behind only hoofprints in the mud and a foal who would never know its mother's loving touch. Somehow, guided perhaps by some desperate instinct for shelter or divine intervention, the young horse had found its way into this abandoned barn, seeking refuge in its dusty corners and shadowy recesses. Now, as the rain continued its relentless pattern outside, the foal's chances grew slimmer with each passing moment. Its small body trembled with each breath, the effort of staying alive almost too much for its young frame to bear, each rise and fall of its chest a testament to its will to survive against overwhelming odds. But nature has a way of writing the most unexpected stories, weaving tales of hope from threads of despair, and help was about to arrive in the most unlikely form. As the evening shadows began to lengthen, painting the barn's interior in shades of amber and gold, a movement at the barn door caught the dim light. A medium-sized dog, its mixed-breed heritage evident in its scruffy coat and alert ears, stood cautiously in the entrance. The dog's own story was written in its lean frame and watchful eyes, clearly a stray, someone's forgotten pet who had learned to survive on its own in this unforgiving world. Its coat, a patchwork of browns and grays, told tales of nights spent in the wild, of meals scrounged from whatever fortune provided, of a life lived on the edges of human society. For a moment, the dog stood perfectly still, its nose working to process the scents of the barn, ears twitching at every small sound, muscles tense and ready for either flight or fressup. The world seemed to hold its breath as these two lost souls prepared to meet, neither knowing that this moment would mark the beginning of an extraordinary journey that would touch the hearts of everyone who witnessed it. The foal's eyes flickered open, meeting the gentle gaze of the approaching dog, and in that moment something remarkable began to unfold. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, had brought together two broken pieces of a puzzle no one knew needed solving. The rain outside softened to a gentle patter, as if nature itself was quieting to witness this fateful encounter. This first chapter in a story of friendship that would defy all expectations and warm even the coldest of hearts. The first step was tentative, almost hesitant, as the stray dog moved deeper into the barn's shadowy interior. Its paws made soft padding sounds against the hay-strewn floor, each step measured and careful, as if understanding the delicacy of the moment. The foal, too weak to lift its head fully, tracked the dog's movement with eyes that held equal measures of fear and desperate longing for companionship. Their first meeting was a dance of cautious curiosity, two souls reaching out across the divide of species to find something they both desperately needed. As the dog drew closer, its nose twitched constantly, taking in the complex sense of hay, horse, and something else, the subtle smell of illness that hung around the foal like a thin veil. The dog's ears, once alert with uncertainty, softened slightly, and its tail, previously held stiff with caution, began a slight, tentative wag. There was something in its demeanor that spoke of understanding, as if it recognized a kindred spirit in this abandoned young horse. The distance between them closed inch by inch, the dog pausing every few steps to ensure it wasn't causing distress. When it was finally close enough, the dog lowered its head to the foal's eye level, a gesture that seemed almost instinctively gentle. The foal's nostrils flared slightly, taking in the scent of its unexpected visitor. And for the first time in days, its ears pricked forward with interest rather than fear. What happened next would later be described as nothing short of miraculous by those who witnessed it. The dog, moving with extraordinary gentleness, settled down in the hay beside the foal, not touching, but close enough that its warmth could be felt. The foal, instead of showing fear, seemed to relax slightly, its breathing becoming less labored in the presence of this unexpected guardian. As the afternoon light filtered through the barn's dusty windows, the dog began a ritual that would become familiar in the days to come. It started grooming itself, a normal, non-threatening behavior, but would occasionally pause to gently lick the foal's face or neck, cleaning away the dirt and grime that had accumulated. The foal, too weak to protest even if it wanted to, accepted these ministrations with growing trust. The dog's presence seemed to awaken something in the young horse, a tiny spark of will to live that had been flickering dangerously low. When night fell, bringing with it a bone-deep chill, the dog pressed closer, sharing its warmth without hesitation. The foal, seeking comfort, leaned slightly into the contact, and together they created a small island of warmth in the vast, cold space of the abandoned barn. But the most remarkable transformation was yet to come. As dawn approached, the dog suddenly got up and disappeared through the barn door, leaving the foal alone once again. The young horse's eyes followed its departure with what could only be described as longing. However, barely 20 minutes later, the dog returned, carrying something in its mouth, a piece of dried bread, likely scavenged from a nearby farm. With incredible gentleness, the dog placed the bread near the foal's mouth, nudging it encouragingly. This simple act of sharing food, of caring for another despite having so little itself, marked the true beginning of their extraordinary bond. The foal, perhaps understanding the significance of this gesture, made its first real effort to move in days, stretching its neck slightly to nibble at the offered food. The dog sat watching, its tail wagging slowly, as if knowing that this small movement was a crucial first step toward recovery. As morning light filled the barn, casting long shadows across the hay-strewn floor, the unlikely pair had already begun to forge a connection that would defy explanation. The dog had appointed itself guardian, nurse, and friend to this orphaned foal, and in doing so, had given them both something they'd been missing, a reason to keep going, a purpose in a world that had seemed so empty just hours before. The days that followed marked the beginning of a remarkable transformation. With each sunrise, the bond between the unlikely pair grew stronger, their connection deepening in ways that seemed to defy the natural order. The dog, now a constant presence in the barn, had developed an almost intuitive understanding of the foal's needs, its protective instincts evolving into something that looked remarkably like parental care. Morning would find them exactly as dusk had left them. The dog curled protectively around the foal, their bodies pressed together for warmth and comfort. But unlike those first desperate days, the foal now lifted its head eagerly at the sound of its friend's movement, its eyes brighter, more alert, carrying a spark of life that had been missing before. The dog's dedication never wavered. It had established a routine that seemed almost methodical in its care. 3 times each day, the dog would venture out from the barn, returning with whatever sustenance it could find: scraps of bread from a nearby farm's kitchen, tender grass pulled carefully from the meadow's edge, even occasionally a fallen apple discovered under distant trees. Each offering was presented with gentle encouragement, the dog's tail wagging softly as it watched the foal eat with increasing strength. But perhaps the most remarkable development came when the dog began what could only be described as physical therapy sessions. It would nose at the foal's legs, gently encouraging movement, standing patient and steady as the young horse made its first tentative attempts to rise. When the foal would stumble, the dog was there, its body becoming a living support beam, allowing the foal to lean against it while finding its balance. The first time, the foal managed to stand completely, though shakily. For more than a few seconds, the dog's excitement was palpable. It pranced around its young friend, tail wagging furiously, offering soft, encouraging barks that echoed through the barn like celebrations. The foal, seeming to feed off this enthusiasm, took its first wobbly step, then another, its legs trembling with effort but holding steady. Their play began cautiously at first, the dog making small, playful bows, tail wagging, while staying mindful of the foal's still fragile state. The foal, in turn, began to mimic these movements in its own way, learning to stretch its neck down, then bounce back up in a horse's version of a play bow. These interactions, while gentle, helped strengthen the foal's muscles and coordination, each day bringing new progress. The bond between them manifested in countless small ways. The foal would whinny softly whenever the dog returned from its foraging trips, a sound that grew stronger and more joyful with each passing day. The dog, in turn, developed a special bark just for the foal, different from its warning barks or playful yips. This was a gentle, almost melodic sound that seemed reserved solely for communicating with its young friend. As the foal's strength returned, their games became more elaborate. The dog would do short runs across the barn, encouraging the foal to follow, always staying close enough to offer support if needed. They developed their own unique way of playing. The dog would weave patterns through the foal's legs, careful not to trip it, while the foal would attempt to nose the dog's tail, creating a gentle dance that strengthened both their bodies and their bond. Their nights remained much as they had begun, curled together in the hay, but now it was a choice rather than necessity. The foal, though strong enough to stand on its own, would still press close to its canine guardian, finding comfort in the familiar warmth and steady heartbeat. The dog maintained its vigilant watch, alert to any sounds that might signal danger, but also clearly finding peace in this unconventional family it had created. What made their relationship truly extraordinary was the way they seemed to communicate without words. A tilt of the dog's head, a flick of the foal's ear, a particular stance or movement, they had developed their own silent language, born of trust and deepened by shared experience. Their story was no longer just about survival, it had become a testament to the transformative power of companionship and unconditional love. The peaceful rhythm of their days was about to face its first real test. As the foal grew stronger, its presence in the abandoned barn became harder to conceal. The sound of playful interaction between the unlikely pair had begun to carry across the fields, catching the attention of locals who had long since written off the old barn as empty. One misty morning, the dog's ears perked up at the sound of approaching footsteps, not the usual casual passing of hikers or wandering farm hands, but the purposeful stride of someone who knew what they were looking for. The dog's protective instincts immediately kicked in, positioning itself between the barn entrance and the foal, who had now grown tall enough to peer over its friend's back with curious eyes. A local veterinarian, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, had heard rumors of strange noises coming from the old Thompson barn. What she discovered stopped her in her tracks, a sight that defied everything she'd learned in her years of practice. There, in the filtered morning light, stood a young gypsy Vanner foal, its coat beginning to show the shine of returning health, protected by a scraggly but fierce-looking mixed-breed dog. The dog's reaction was immediate and complex. It gave a low, warning growl, but there was an intelligence in its eyes that seemed to be assessing the situation rather than blindly defending. The foal, showing remarkable trust in its guardian's judgment, remained calm but alert, its ears swiveling between its protector and the newcomer. Dr. Mitchell, with years of experience handling both domestic and wild animals, knew this was a delicate situation. She slowly sank to her knees, making herself less threatening, and began speaking in soft, soothing tones. The dog's ears twitched at her voice, its head tilting slightly as if considering her words. What followed was a careful dance of trust building. The veterinarian would take one step forward, then wait, allowing both animals to adjust to her presence. The dog, showing remarkable judgment, would occasionally look back at the foal as if checking its comfort level before allowing the woman to move closer. When Dr. Mitchell was finally able to examine the foal, her amazement only grew. Despite the challenges it had faced, the young horse was surprisingly healthy. The dog had somehow managed to not only keep it alive but help it thrive. The foal's muscles had developed properly, its coat, though still dirty, showed signs of good nutrition, and most importantly, it displayed none of the fear or withdrawal often seen in abandoned animals. But the most remarkable moment came when she attempted to separate them for a proper examination. The foal became immediately distressed, its eyes searching for its canine protector. The dog, which had been watching intently from a short distance, quickly moved closer, pressing against the foal's legs in a gesture that was both reassuring and protective. The young horse visibly calmed at its friend's touch. Dr. Mitchell faced a difficult decision. Standard procedure would dictate taking the foal to a proper equine facility, but it was clear that separating these two would cause significant trauma to both animals. The dog had not only saved the foal's life but had become its family, its emotional anchor in a world that had once abandoned it. As she watched them interact, the gentle way the dog guided the foal's movements, the complete trust the young horse showed in its protector, she realized that sometimes the best medicine isn't found in veterinary textbooks. The bond between these two animals had created something extraordinary, a healing that went beyond mere physical recovery. The sun was setting by the time Dr. Mitchell left the barn, her medical bag full of notes about what might be the most unusual case of her career. She had made her decision. This unconventional family needed to stay together. Now she just had to figure out how to make that happen within the confines of proper animal care regulations. Behind her, in the growing darkness of the barn, the dog and foal settled into their usual evening routine, unaware that their story was about to reach far beyond the confines of their peaceful sanctuary. Their bond, forged in desperation and strengthened by love, would soon become a testament to the extraordinary capacity for compassion that exists in the animal kingdom. The next few weeks brought changes that would transform not just the old barn, but the entire community around it. Dr. Mitchell had shared the extraordinary story with a local animal sanctuary, Green Meadows Haven, known for its innovative approach to animal rehabilitation. The sanctuary's director, after witnessing the remarkable bond between the dog and foal firsthand, made an unprecedented decision. They would create a special enclosure specifically designed to house both animals together. The transformation of their living space was handled with exceptional care. Workers moved slowly, taking breaks when either animal showed signs of stress. The dog watched every movement with alert attention, staying close to the foal throughout the renovation. Rather than completely changing their environment, the sanctuary team chose to preserve parts of their original shelter, incorporating familiar elements of the old barn into their new home. What emerged was something extraordinary. a spacious enclosure that bridged the needs of both species. A cozy, cabin-like structure replaced their corner of the barn, while a sprawling paddock provided room for the foal to develop its growing strength. The dog had access to everything, free to move between spaces, maintaining its self-appointed role as guardian and companion. News of the unusual pair spread, first through local media, then catching the attention of national networks. People came from neighboring towns, then from across the state, hoping to witness this remarkable friendship. The sanctuary carefully managed these visits, protecting the animals' peace while allowing their story to inspire others. The foal, now named Spirit for its resilient nature, grew into its Gypsy Vanner heritage. Its coat developed the breed's characteristic flowing feathers, black and white patches gleaming with health. The dog, dubbed Guardian by the sanctuary staff, remained a constant presence, adapting its care as Spirit grew. Their play evolved. What once had been gentle support became joyful races across the paddock, the dog weaving patterns while Spirit pranced alongside. Their impact on the sanctuary was profound. Other animals seemed to sense something special about the pair, and their enclosure became a peaceful center point of the facility. Stressed animals placed nearby often calmed more quickly. Children visiting the sanctuary were particularly moved by their story, learning valuable lessons about friendship, loyalty, and looking beyond surface differences. Veterinary students began visiting to study their interaction, documenting how their unique bond had contributed to Spirit's development. The foal had grown into a horse that combined the best traits of its breed with unique dog-like social behaviors. It would play fetch with Guardian, respond to similar commands, and display an unusual level of gentleness with smaller animals. Guardian, despite Spirit now towering over it, maintained its protective role with dignified dedication. The dog had developed an uncanny ability to sense Spirit's moods, often alerting sanctuary staff to any health concerns before visible symptoms appeared. Their nighttime ritual remained unchanged. Guardian would still curl up in Spirit's stall, the horse gently nestling down nearby, their positioning almost identical to those first crucial nights in the old barn. The sanctuary integrated their story into its educational programs, using their bond to teach about empathy, rehabilitation, and the importance of allowing animals to form natural connections. Their enclosure became a symbol of the sanctuary's philosophy that healing comes in many forms, and sometimes the best medicine is the company of a trusted friend. Perhaps most remarkably, their presence began attracting other special cases: abandoned foals, injured dogs, animals that other facilities had struggled to rehabilitate. The sanctuary gained a reputation for handling unique bonded pairs, all because of the path that Spirit and Guardian had blazed. As summer turned to autumn, their story continued to unfold in beautiful and unexpected ways. The old barn where their journey began was preserved by the community as a historic site, a reminder that hope can take root in the most abandoned places. But more importantly, the dog and horse remained inseparable, their bond growing stronger with each passing season, proving that family isn't defined by species but by the love and loyalty shared between hearts. Years have passed since that fateful rainy night when a stray dog first padded into an abandoned barn and found a dying foal. Today, Spirit and Guardian's story has become legendary at Green Meadows Haven, their presence a living testament to the extraordinary power of unconditional love. Their daily routine has settled into a peaceful rhythm that still manages to amaze everyone who witnesses it. Dawn typically finds them greeting the day together, Spirit's magnificent black and white coat gleaming in the morning sun, while Guardian, now graying around the muzzle but still alert and devoted, maintains its watchful presence. The size difference between them has become almost comical. Spirit towers over its canine friend, yet their interactions remain as gentle and synchronized as ever. Like a carefully choreographed dance, they move through their days with an awareness of each other that transcends ordinary animal behavior. Their influence extends far beyond their own remarkable story. The sanctuary has documented countless instances of their positive impact on other animals. New arrivals, particularly traumatized horses or dogs, are often housed within sight of Spirit and Guardian's enclosure. There's something about watching their peaceful interaction that seems to calm other animals, showing them that safety and trust are possible even after hardship. Perhaps most touching are the moments when young visitors come to the sanctuary. Children with their own struggles, whether physical, emotional, or social, find special comfort in watching this unlikely pair. The sight of a massive gypsy vanner horse gently playing with its small canine companion sends a powerful message about looking beyond differences and finding connection in unexpected places. The veterinary community has taken notice as well. What began as an impossible situation, a dying foal and a stray dog, has become a case study in the importance of emotional bonds in animal rehabilitation. Spirit's development, guided by Guardian's unconventional care, has challenged traditional assumptions about both species' behavioral capabilities. As the sun sets over Green Meadows Haven each evening, visitors often gather at a respectful distance to witness a ritual that has remained unchanged since those first desperate nights in the barn. Guardian still circles Spirit's stall, checking every corner before settling down. Spirit, despite now being a magnificent adult horse, still gently lowers itself nearby, positioning itself so that Guardian can lean against its warm bulk. In those quiet moments, the years seem to fall away, and they are once again just two lost souls who found salvation in each other's company. Their story has become more than just a tale of survival or unlikely friendship. It stands as a reminder that sometimes the most powerful healing comes not from medicine or conventional treatment, but from the simple presence of someone who refuses to give up on you. In a world that often seems divided by differences, Spirit and Guardian demonstrate daily that love knows no boundaries, not species, not size, not circumstance. The old barn where their story began still stands, now preserved as a historic landmark. Local artists have painted a mural on one wall, a tiny foal and a scruffy dog, their silhouettes merged in the golden light of dawn. Below it, a simple plaque reads, "Where Hope Found a Home." Freedom isn't just about survival, it's about finding your place in the world, even if that place looks nothing like what others might expect. This is the story of Spirit and Guardian, a testament to the extraordinary things that can happen when love overshadows difference and courage wears the most unexpected faces. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that family isn't always about what you're born into. Sometimes it's about who chooses to stay by your side. Together, we can spread a message of hope, compassion, and the incredible bonds that can form when we open our hearts to unexpected possibilities.